Welcome to the Empowerment Show with Melissa Heisler. Every week, discover new personal choices with practical, inspiring guides. And now, here's Melissa.
Welcome to the Empowerment Show. I'm Melissa Heisler from It's My Life, and it is your life. Live it. Today, I will be joined by Donna Scott-Nusrala, and we'll be talking about the energy of emotion. Welcome to the show, Donna.
Thank you, Melissa. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're excited to have you again because you were on our show before and you were talking about your children's books. And two of the books that you have were about teaching children how to attract what they want through vibration and frequency. And your new book, The Energy of Emotion, is that the adult version or is that another aspect of energy?
It's definitely an adult version. I guess the children's books are just super simplified. This is a little more in depth, and you can use it with kids once you understand the process, but it's definitely not a kid's book. This is my first adult book, so to speak, but it was meant to be because I'm a science teacher, and all of the things that have come before me over the years and even writing children's books were all put before me in a very interesting sequential order to bring me to this point to write this book. And so I've kind of come full circle, and I'm back to where my expertise was science and understanding energy and physics. So.
And this book kind of goes a little away from, I guess it doesn't go away from, but it's a much more personal version of it. Can you tell us a little bit how energy and emotions and intentions are linked together?
Yeah, they're actually all very closely linked. You see, the way I understand it, our brains are broadcasters and receivers of information, and our hearts are emoters of that information. So even if you think of a car, a motor, we call it the motor, which is the heart of a car. We have an e-motor, and our e-motor directs us and guides us by our emotions. And our emotions are what we intend to do or how we intend to respond or react to things. So our intentions and our emotions are very similar. Our intentions are created by our emotions. But when we have a thought, we actually bring that thought in through our brain and then send it to our heart. And then we attach an emotion to it. And then we react or respond to that emotion. And when we take, for example, a fear, it goes through our brain and we rationalize it in our brain through our five senses. We see, hear, touch, taste, smell, etc. to that fear, but then it goes immediately to our heart and then we broadcast an emotional response. And then what we do then is we react or respond to that fear. And what I've learned was that if we can be very in touch with what we are emoting, then we can change our reality and change what we manifest in our lives by being consciously aware of what we're emoting or broadcasting, and then consciously broadcasting things that we want to have. And there's a trick to it. And I've been studying this for years now, and I've put together kind of a protocol for people to follow in kind of a workbook format. And you can use this to try creating a new reality. Sounds kind of deep. It's where spirituality meets science, kind of explaining the science behind spirituality, in a sense. I hope that made sense to you.
Yeah, and let's take maybe a step back because the idea, when I hear emotions, I think about, happy, sad, angry. And I think the emotions you're talking about are more the feeling of those emotions.
Right.
So if you're around somebody, you can feel that they're sad, you can feel that they're angry, and it's that you're emoting, that you're projecting towards others.
Right, and you can instantly change by broadcasting a different emotion. You can then, the transmitter and receiver of the other person, their brain, will pick up your energy, and their broadcast can shift. It's fascinating. One of the things that I've practiced regularly is, you know how you walk into a room and you can feel heavy, dense energy, or you feel light? You ever walk into a room of people and you kind of feel the tone of the energy in the room? Well, if you're consciously aware of that tone, you can consciously broadcast a different frequency and change the whole tone of the room. Very interesting. So we actually have the ability, we actually create everything in our lives. The minute we realize that we are 100% responsible for everything that we create in our lives, then we could realize, too, that we can change the reality of our lives. And moment to moment, it's really a fun thing to try to do. It takes a little time and a little practice, but it's really fun to try and do those things.
And I think the idea of that we're responsible for 100% of what we experience in our life is a difficult concept for many people to buy into, because we believe that things happen to us. You know, we have a bad boss, or we got this disease, or you know, that we're a victim of the circumstances or the events or the people around us. So how do you address and help people understand that they are not victims, but what they can do to affect the circumstances that they're in?
I honestly think you've hit on the biggest hurdle for people, because they don't want to accept that they could possibly have created what is going on in their lives. But the flip side to that is, once you realize you didn't do it consciously, you did it with your emoter, you didn't do it with your receiver and broadcaster. Your receiver and broadcaster senses things. So when you say, okay, so I have this condition, and you're saying I created it, there's no way I wanted this condition. Why would I create this? So what happened was, you were broadcasting and receiving an emotion that created it. And an emotion is not conscious. It is subconscious. It's a feeling. Feelings don't really have a definition or words, but we can rationalize them in this part of our body, in our brains, by our senses. So I can see I have this condition, I can feel it, I can taste it, I can touch it, I can smell it, but there's no way I can rationalize that I created it. And so you're wrong. And that's where people, they get stuck there and say, there's no way I did not create this. This happened to me. Well, it happened to you based on what you were broadcasting emotionally. So say you have a car accident. Say you're in a car accident, and you were 100%, you were 50%, you co-created that car accident with the person that was in it with you, and they hit you, and you're saying, I did not create this car accident. They hit me. Well, it's all energy. It's magnetic. So you were broadcasting an emotion, maybe someone's in pain in your neck and the accident caused neck pain, or you were broadcasting an emotion that magnetically attracted that circumstance to happen. So thoughts are magnetic, and they're pulled into you by what you're broadcasting with your emotions. And they go through your brain into your heart and out from your heart to your brain, and they're broadcast and received into the ether. But what we have a hard time getting our hands around is that everything that happens to us is based on what we're feeling and broadcasting. So the goal is to always be feeling good, or trying to be feeling a little better, and watch what happens in your life. And what my book does is explains to you how you can release these negative thoughts and energy patterns that we have stuck. They're literally stuck in us, or stuck to us like magnets. You can release the magnetic charge and then start to feel better. And when you do that, circumstances, events, and situations start to appear, and they're magnetically attracted to you in a positive way. You have to get beyond the negative to start attracting the positive.
Exactly, and I want to make sure very clear here, we're not playing the blame game. No one is, it's not, you had this happen to you and therefore you're a bad person, or you're consciously bringing these horrible things into your life. That is certainly not what we're saying here. It is more about maybe there was something we learned. Maybe there was an environment we were brought into. Maybe there's a thought pattern we have. Maybe there's expectations that we have. And because we have those thoughts and expectations, that's then the emotion that we're sending out there. And I think I was going to say the powerful thing with this is that right now you're unconsciously sending out signals and attracting things to you. So the power is to become aware of what it is that you're sending out there and make a conscious choice to shift your energy, to shift what you're bringing to you.
Exactly. It has a beautiful flip side. In other words, once you realize, oh my gosh, I brought that into me. What was I thinking, or what was I feeling that created those circumstances? And guess what? If I can bring them in, I can change them. So it's empowering to be able to change what's happening to you. You actually have the ability to change them. And people will say, well, I have this condition, there's nothing I can do about it, but that's not true. That the truth is, once you start vibrating at a different frequency and start pulling in different circumstances, events, and situations, the facts change. The reality changes. It's an amazing thing. And also, those who play the blame game and say, they can get angry and respond, well, I didn't cause this. Guess what? You can now forgive yourself because you didn't consciously know you were creating it. It's very empowering and very liberating, but you have to get there. And that's once you get to that thought that you can change your reality by your emotions and rebroadcast a different frequency, it's very empowering and very liberating.
Absolutely, and there's a lot more that I want to talk to you about around that topic, but I wonder if we can start off by talking about how are emotions tied to disease and dysfunction. So is there a strong correlation, or what's the A plus B equals C of the tie between emotion and disease?
Okay, I'm going to give you kind of a visual. What I want you to do is think about positive, negative charges, like on atoms, like an electron has a negative charge, protons have a positive charge. Think of positive and negative charges. Well, what we do throughout our lives is we have experiences. And I'm going to put a vessel in front of me. There's this empty jar, okay? And on this hand, I have positive experiences, and in this one, I have negative experiences. And when we're born, either we have a traumatic birth or we have a very easy birth. And that would be a positive experience. I'll put some pluses in my vessel here. And then say at age 1 we get contract a childhood disease, and then we put some negative in that vessel. And the vessel is actually you. And you're hospitalized, and it's very scary. More negative, more negative, more negative. My vessel's starting to fill with negative. But then I get through it, and I have a pretty uneventful childhood. Things are good. Mom loves me. Dad loves me. I love to, play and skip, and everything's great, more positive. Well, what happens is, as we go throughout our lives, we accumulate these negative events, which have magnetic charge, and we attract positive, which also have a magnetic charge. Depending on how we fill our vessel, if we have mostly negative, we have a heavier, dense negative energy, and it's stuck in our field magnetically. And every time we experience a negative emotion that's linked to that, like say the fear of having that childhood disease, we add another link to a chain of negative disease, and we create this big, long chain of negative emotion attached to this fear of getting sick, okay? I was sick as a child. That was very fearful. Every time I get fearful of being sick, I add another link. And that chain gets heavier and denser and heavier and denser and heavier and denser. And depending on where we have that attached to us, we start to manifest disease. And it's our body telling us, take a look at this. You keep creating more of this heavy, dense energy here. And if you can take a look at it and we can find it, which is something I've learned to do, find out what emotion started that heavy, dense chain. When we look at that, we can flow the charge to it, and actually there's an energetic charge, and release the magnetic attraction. Then your body begins to rebalance, and over time, circumstances, events, situations happen, and your body starts to become well. And I've seen it happen over and over again with all different types of illnesses. I'm also working on success issues with people who they're perpetually fail. They're always in a state of failure. Well, chances are something in their childhood early on or generationally has attached to them magnetically, just like an atom. You know how atoms attract together to create a molecule. We actually have magnetic pull, and we pull in these negative thoughts, and we just create more of them and more and more of them until they start to show up in a big way in our life, either in a disease or failure or dysfunction or depression or lack of motivation. And what it is it's just bigger, heavier, and denser, and that's why as we age, it becomes more and more and more of the same thing.
So I understand the concept of building up the negativity in our vessel and how it grows as we continue to put it in there. You also talked that the emotions can get stuck in us. Can you explain what that means and what it looks like?
I think a perfect example of stuck emotions is fibromyalgia, because what happens is I've linked most fibromyalgia to some sort of abuse as a child, and every time we are in another situation where that abuse feels, or the situation feels like that same feeling you had when you were abused, you stick it in your body. You actually have more magnetic attachment to it. And I'm not sure if you've talked about the aura or a field. Your mind is actually a field around your body, and these thoughts actually do get stuck in this field around your body. And every time you experience a form of abuse, you pull in another lump of dense energy, and it just starts to take over. When there's more negative than positive, you start to feel the results of the heavy dense energy, and it gets pulled into your mind. It gets stuck there. And what my technique does is it literally goes into your mind, and we do this by going from your conscious into your subconscious, and we find where that heavy dense energy is stuck, and we locate the emotion that you attach to it. We match the frequency of that emotion, shatter the energetic charge, and your body, you'll actually feel lighter after we do a session. And I think you might have experienced that when we did our session. You actually feel a shift, you feel different, you feel lighter, and what that was is a piece, a chunk of this heavy dense energy is literally taken out of your mind. But what I learned also is that if we don't fill that gap with some positive energy, it stays open and it's magnetic, and you'll pull in more. Or you can replace that with a positive emotion, and you reprogram yourself. And that's all part of, complicated, but it's all part of the system that I've developed.
Right, and the system that you developed is quantum energetic coaching, which you do both personally, and it's the technique that you outline in your book, The Energy of Emotion, and to teach us how to remove that stuck energy and to be able to pull in more positive energy.
Right. You can actually, if you can visualize a mind, which is a sphere around your body, and this is where you pull in these negative, dense energies, just visualize taking a piece of it and getting rid of it and putting in something positive. And I've worked with people when we've released some of this negative energy, when I'm done, I'll say to them, what were we working on? And many times they'll say, I don't even remember. And what's so fascinating is that emotion that was creating that heavy, dense energy actually left the mind. It's out of their mind, and they don't think about it anymore.
And that's one of the reasons I want to stop you right there, because it's one of the reasons I love your technique and other energy work that's out there, is that our world of psychology can do some great work to help people with immediate traumas and people with, severe mental illnesses. They do wonderful work. But I also think that people with some of this negative energy buildup, if they continue going week after week to a psychologist, instead of releasing it, they are attracting more of it to them. And so that's one of the reasons I love the work that you do.
Well, thank you. And I think one of the pivotal things for me was learning that a thought is actually a quantifiable thing. And that's when it all fell together. When I saw Emoto's experiment on thought. Have you seen that video?
With the water?
Yeah, with the water. What it just was the missing piece in my research is like, okay, so if a thought is a quantifiable thing, okay, if a thought is a thing, it has mass, all right, and every time you think that thought, you add mass to it, and you just make it grow bigger, bigger, and bigger, and you can do that with positive thoughts, and you can do that with negative thoughts, but our culture is predominantly negative, and we always worry. We're in a state of fear all the time. And so we just keep adding heavy, dense, negative energy into our mind, and we create this heavy, dense, negative energy. And fibromyalgia is a condition that our whole body is trying to tell us, I'm feeling heavy and dense energy, release it. And I've had some pretty amazing results with people on fibromyalgia releasing. It's not instant, but sometimes it is. And then their body rebalances, and they're like, oh my gosh, I haven't moved my arm like this in I don't know how long. And it's fascinating. Same with allergies. Like allergies are an emotion. I don't know if you've read much on this, but often allergies happen because of a trauma that happened to us. Our spring allergies, if you have spring allergies, consider a trauma you might have had in the spring at one point in your life. And then when you smell the pollen or the flowers in the air in the spring, it keys in that old trauma. And then you just keep adding more of it. Oh my gosh, I'm getting more. I'm so worried. My allergies are getting worse. And then so you just keep adding more and getting more and getting more. It gets heavier and denser and heavier and denser. And every year your allergies get worse. Why is that?
And I want to go back a second just for our listeners to check out the experiment that Donna brought up. What I remember about it was that I think he took water and froze it, and he would give a different word when he was freezing it, and the crystals formed differently depending on the word. And so it was really an experiment to show that our words and the feelings behind those words have an effect on physical form. And I love what you just brought up about allergies. And finding the cause of the trauma behind them. And then once we can get that, that's also a helpful part of releasing. I do a lot more mind work than energy. That's why I pull people like Donna in. And there's a lot we can do consciously to make different choices, to think different things, to change our old belief system so that we're not adding more links. But what I want to talk about is Donna's procedure to actually remove some of this stuck energy. As we mentioned, I did this a few months ago with you, Donna, and what I thought was amazing about it was you had me take a selfie when I was remembering something that was causing me pain. And I didn't tell you what it was, I just sent you the selfie. And then maybe you can talk about what's the process you went through for the energy coaching that you do.
Okay, so how I arrived at that is a very interesting story. One of the things that I had learned as a science person and interested in science and all this, was that about photographs and imagery and how photographs actually give off energy. And I started experimenting with photographs of people, my dog, and I realized that everybody's photograph is actually transmitting the emotions, the predominant emotion of what they're thinking in that picture. And I started going back through photos. This is just bizarre. Started going back through photos. I pulled up some pictures of my parents. And one of the pictures of my parents was them at senior prom, and I put my hand on their picture, and I used a pendulum to spell out the emotion that they were broadcasting. And my mom was broadcasting, and it just spells out, "I love looking pretty." And then I put my hand on my father's picture, and I couldn't have made this up. And I used the pendulum, and I am the broadcaster and receiver of information. I am an open vessel for this information. And I received the information that my father was broadcasting, "I wonder if she likes Chinese," which I thought was really unusual. So then I started taking pictures of people, and I would read their energy, and I would say, "So what were you thinking?" And the emotion behind what they were thinking started matching what I was reading. And so I started then, we don't always know what we're broadcasting. Like, someone who seems really calm and really has it together could be broadcasting panic. And they don't even realize it because they don't know it consciously. It's where they're broadcasting it from the heart. And so what I learned was that by reading the broadcasts coming off their photographs, I could find out what they were really broadcasting every time that situation came up. So if you had a trauma, maybe it wasn't fear that you were broadcasting, maybe it was depression. And it's like sometimes it's totally not at all what you think it would be. And so I've been able to identify what it is people are broadcasting when they think for about 20 seconds about what it is and snap their picture. They're sending out a beam of energy, and I'm able to read it. And then what we do at that point, that's identify. That's the first part. We identify what emotion you're broadcasting, and then we release it. And there's a process for releasing it, and we do that by matching the frequency and blowing the charge. And then the third part of my program is to reset you then to a positive emotion. And we do that, and Napoleon Hill is one of my favorites for positive programming. I use some of his techniques from his books on resetting you to a positive frequency. So say you're broadcasting fear. Okay, so we go through this whole protocol, release the fear, and then we reprogram you to faith, maybe what you need to be broadcasting. And then there's a protocol in my book for how to do that. And once you start broadcasting a new frequency, watch out, your life starts to shift. And if you're aware and you're watching and listening, things start coming to you that are unbelievable.
And I can testify to that because I think it's been less than 6 months, maybe 4 months or so since you gave me a treatment or whatever the term is that you use for your practice. And I did immediately feel the lightness that you mentioned. And then I have also seen a shift in how I'm approaching life, and then also the opportunities that are coming to me. Because I think a lot of what I had was a block for the good to come to me. And so I can see that I'm attracting better things into my life versus pushing them away. So it's really a powerful procedure.
Right. I think when we did it, you did not consciously know what you were broadcasting. And that's where this whole, back to that blame game thought that you had comes from. We don't know we're doing it. We certainly wouldn't do it if we knew it. So we don't consciously know. And so once we find out, release, and reprogram, it's amazing. I mean, I've seen some miracles with this.
And if somebody would like to have either a treatment from you or would like to pick up a copy of the book so they can learn how to do the technique themselves, where can they find that information?
The book, all you have to do is go online, energyofomotion.com, and it will describe the book. You can also go to my website, amopublishing.com. You can get the book there. You can also get it on Amazon. I don't have it out in bookstores, and that's deliberate. So as of right now, but you can get it on Amazon.com, and you can get it on my website.
So thank you very much. We'll share that information about the energyofomotion.com so that people can learn where they can pick up your book. And I don't know if you have any parting thoughts that you have, Donna, but I'm so happy you came on the show to explain that even though we are creating our experience, we're not to blame for our experience, and more importantly, we're empowered to change our experience.
Life is not a sentence, and that was kind of really liberating for me. You're not sentenced to this life, and these are tools that can really help you change it. Anybody interested in scheduling a session, I am available for sessions. You can schedule a session. You can call me directly at 440-554-7505.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show and sharing your technique today. I really appreciate it. I hope that it was great information for our listeners. And thank you again, Donna.
Thank you.
Join Melissa Heisler next week right here at The Empowerment Show. Join the conversation at facebook.com/The Empowerment Show or twitter.com/Empowerment Show.